In this video, I'll go over some more examples of making truth tables. Be sure that you watched the first part, video A, of the examples before watching this video. So here, I want to make a truth table for the compound statement, the negation of Q, or the negation of the quantity P and not Q. I'll again use my numbering system to do this. And in this example, what I really want to stress is the need to pay attention to the top row. So I'm going to make all of the top row first, plan out what I'm going to do, and then go through the work of filling in the rest of the truth table. When I do this, I'm consistently going to look at the problem by going from left to right. This isn't necessary per se, but that's how I'll do this. So first I'm going to see here that I want to do the negation of Q going left to right. I don't have that somewhere. The negation of Q should be the negation of what's in column 2. So I'm going to call that column 3. Again, this represents the negation of Q. Feel free to write that on your notes. Once I have the negation of Q, well, this is this part done. I'm going to take that OR with this whole thing. I don't have this whole thing somewhere. I need it. I do have P. I'm going to need to end that with the negation of Q. This I have. So I can do this whole part inside of here at this point, and that's going to be column 1 and column 3. Call that column 4. Next, well, this is what I have in column 4. Negating that will be my column 5. So this entire thing over here is now in column 5. The negation of Q is column 3. So I'm going to do the negation of Q, that is column 3, or this whole thing, which is in column 5. Notice the way that I've written this out, we see in each column exactly one operation being taken care of. I have a negation here, I have an and here. I have a negation here, I have an or here. And in any one column, I'm only ever allowed to do one thing on truth table, and that's what I see here. Going through and doing those things, negating what's in column 2. What was true will be false, what was false is true. True, false, false, true. So again, in this column it's false, true, false, true. Looking at an and statement, the rule with and is where they're both true, it's true, otherwise it's false. If they're both true here in row 2, and that's it, false otherwise. So row 4 should be false, true, false, false. Looking at, or rather column 4. Looking at column 5, that's the negation of what I have in column 4. While I'm over here in column 4, I'm going to negate that. Well, what was false is true, what's true is false, what's false is true, what's false is true. So in column 5, I should have true, false, true, true. Looking at 3 or 5, I'm looking at column 3, I'm using the OR rule. The OR rule says where they're both false, it's false, otherwise it's true. In none of those 2 are they both false, so all of these are true. So my final result from this truth table is a column including nothing but trues. This has actually got a special name. This is called a tautology, which will play an important role for us as we go forward. Now let's move on to the next example. In our next example, we want to make a truth table for the quantity if P then not Q and Q. Going from left to right, the first thing I see that I'm not able to do is not Q, so I need a column in my truth table for that. That'll be the negation of what's in column 2. I'll call that column 3. This column should be filled with false, true, false, true, negating what was in column 2. Then I have everything I need to do this if then. If P, that's column 1. Then not Q, that's column 3. And the if-then rule says when the first thing is true, along with the second thing being false, the if-then statement is false, otherwise it's true. So I'm looking for where column 1 is true and column 3 is false. I see that happening in row 1 and nowhere else. If true, false. So the if-then is false. It's not that. It's not true, false here. It's not true, false here. It's not true, false here. The remaining rows in column 4 should be true. Now I have all of this done. I want to do all of that and Q. I have the ability to do that now. So that should be 4 and 2. So column 5 should be my final answer. The AND rule says I'm looking for where 4 is true and 2 is true as well. Can't be here. True and false, no. True and true, yes. True and false, no. So filling the remaining columns with false, I should see that the final result for this truth table is false, false, true, false. In my next example, I will look at the quantity if P then Q and the quantity if Q then P. As I go from left to right, I see if P then Q is something I can do. That's if 1 then 2. Well, then I need a and statement. I don't yet have this part, so I need to do that part. This is if 2 then 1. The order does matter there. So those are my columns 3 and 4. Now I've got this whole part in column 3, this whole part in column 4. I want to do column 3 and column 4. And that'll be my final result for the truth table. Going through and applying the if-then rule for 1 and 2, I'm looking for where the first thing is true and the second thing is false. That occurs in row 2. And it only occurs in row 2, so it's true everywhere else. Be real careful with column 4. Be real careful with column 4. The order matters. The first thing is column 2. So I'm looking for where column 2 is true and column 1 is false. That occurs right here in row 3. Column 2 is true. The first thing is true. Column 1 is false. The second thing is false in this order. Where column 2 is true and column 1 is false occurs in row 3. So the statement if 2 then 1 is false in row 3 and true everywhere else. Now when I look at 3 and 4, the rule for the AND is where they're both true, it's true, otherwise it's false. Both rows 3 and 4 are true in row 1. Column 3 and 4 are true both in row 1 and row 4. Let me stress that. True, true in row 1, true, true in row 4. You can have these be true in more than one place. And it's false in the other places. What you also may remember about this is that this was equivalent to the biconditional P if and only if Q. This is what the rule we have for the biconditional, and this is why. So we've seen in making this truth table why the rule for the biconditional is what it is. In the last example in this video, I want to consider making a truth table for the quantity, the negation of P if and only if the negation of Q. If that whole thing, then P and not Q. So this is I want to make a truth table for this. What I'd really like you to do is to try this yourself, to set up the top row yourself before watching the rest of the video. That is, hit pause now. Now that you're back, hopefully you'll have what we have here. To do this, as I go from left to right, I want to first find the negation of P, that's the negation of column 1. I need the negation of Q to be able to do the if and only if here. So that's the negation of 2. Now I can do this if and only if statement, so that's going to be 3 if and only if 4 in column 5. Again, this whole thing I have in column 5. No, this whole thing is in column 5. Continue on over here. I already have written down the negation of Q, so I can already perform everything here. That should be 1, or the negation of Q is in column 4, and that's column 6. So again, this whole thing is in column 6. So I take 5, if 5, then 6. If 5, then 6. And that should be my overall result in this example. Again, hopefully you have that written down. I'm not going to show you all the work, but I'm going to go through and write down the final answer to this so you have it in your notes. Here we see the overall truth table. Hopefully that's what you have already done in your notes as well. And again, we see that the final result of this is a tautology itself. Have fun with logic.